What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. It's time for the betting show and our top 5 bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And all the bets this week are going to come from UFC Fight Night 251 Cannonier versus Rodrigues. And I'll be honest, it's a pretty poor card, but that doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't really matter when we're betting on it. We were looking at the bets. We're not looking at the fights. You know, the quality of the fights. But I'll be very honest. Watching tape on this, there was a lot of like, oh Jesus, who's like. It's usually like, oh, who's the better fighter? This may a couple of these are like, who's the worst fighter? Which I don't like talking bad on people or anything like that. But look, we have to be frank sometimes, and I think that is the case with this card. It's not a great card. There's a lot of lads kind of hanging on. There's a lot of lads who will they go to the next level, and like very few, I would say, top prospects, if any, on this card. And very few lads who you think might fight for the title, if any, on this card over the next while. But there are a couple. There are a couple now. Don't get me wrong. So we won't be too negative on it. But as I say, the money's green, and we can still make the money while betting responsibly. And please do bet responsibly. Before we get to this week, though, let's have a quick look back at last week. It felt like a bad week as it was happening, betting wise. But when I looked at it again, we went 2 for 2, so not too bad. Our parlay didn't hit, so you could argue we went 2 for 3. Or how did I say that? 2 for 2. So we got 2 right and 2 wrong, and we got a third wrong as well. So the parlay didn't hit. Jenkins and Juice both didn't win. But it was always going to be a long one anyway. Plus 711. The Suarez bet didn't hit. I think I pretty much said exactly how the Suarez fight was going to go without the part of her losing. Like, I was like, oh, the last few fights, she took people down and she failed to just stay on top and work on top. But if she does that this time, she'll win. But then she got on top, failed to stay on top, didn't work on top, and lost. So yeah, it was one of those. I knew exactly what the issue was, and I just ignored it anyway. But you know, I was talking to Ian O'Neill over on one of the shows after the betting show, and he was picking Zhang Weili, and I kind of said it to him. I was like, "This is one of the bets. If I didn't pick Suarez and she won, I'd feel so bad about it. But I can live with the pick now, even though I was completely wrong." But the other pick was Nolan Barshev. Under 1.5 rounds. Yeah, that one obviously went to the decision, so that wasn't the best of picks either. I thought one side would overwhelm the other, and you could argue it did with Nolan, but not as much as I thought it would, I suppose. So there you go. And the 2 bets that hit, Tafa versus Teixeira under 1.5 rounds, that was always going to hit. I think minus 163, but that price was really good. A minus 172 for Strickland. And Duplessis to go to a decision, so that was not a bad price either. So if you hopefully you could make a bit more money back from that. So on the year now, we are last week 2 from 4, and we didn't hit the flyer. Overall 11 from 19, and no flyer hit yet. So we're above the 50% mark. So not a bad start to the year at all. Not a bad start to the year at all. We've had at least. Am I right in saying we've had at least 2 bets every week? Well, there was one week there was a few cancelled fights and we only had 1 bet, but yeah, pretty good start to the year. Right, let's get into this UFC card, and I'm going to start with probably the most, I was going to say interesting. Maybe interesting is not the right word, but someone I'm always fascinated about betting on and talking about betting, and that's Angela Hill. But the pick is, I'm going to go for her opponent, Ketlen Souza, just to win straight up at minus 105. And I'll be honest, I was a touch surprised that it was this close. And this is, let me just check here, but this has changed. So she was plus money. When I was looking at this yesterday, she was plus 105. And now she's minus 105. But I'm going to stick with it. And I actually think she'll go further. A couple of places here, she's minus 111. So if you're betting on this and you want to bet it, I would suggest betting it now. Hill is still the favourite, though. Hill is minus 115 here in most places. Best price minus 110. So minus 110. So Angela Hill is as I said, the favorite. Look, you could understand why as well. Souza hasn't lit the world alight, I suppose. She lost to Karine Silva in her UFC debut after coming in from Invicta. She went in there against Marek Mandin, who is, probably not UFC level, and she made kind of tough work of that. But then she was a big underdog in her last fight against Yasmin Jadogwai, I believe it's pronounced. I watched that back today. She ended up getting the rear naked choke in that fight, and that was a really, really good win. So, she's 2-1 in the UFC. You can't say that much about her, but she has been a little bit hit and miss. I'll get to the good stuff in a second. Now, for Angela Hill, at 40 years of age, and it's actually Angela Hill's birthday today as I record this, so happy birthday to Angela Hill. 17-14. She's won 2 of her last 3, same as her opponent. Lost to Tabitha Ricci last time on, just outgunned by a way better fighter. And it was Gomez and Pinheiro were 2 good wins before that. Got a nice guillotine choke against Pinheiro. And look, Angela Hill does what she does. She throws her jabs. She goes to a boatload of decisions, 23 decisions in her career. Only 7 fights have finished inside the distance. So that's the type of fighter she is, and she's very effective at using her jab and being long and everything like that. But Souza on the other side of it then is, obviously, there's way more finishes in her fights. 10 fights, she's won inside the distance. She's lost 4, never lost by decision. Has 5 decisions, all right, but 5 decisions in 19 fights for a 115-pounder is a really, really, really good finish rate. And she fights like that. Like, watching back the Yasmin fight last time out, I was really impressed by everything she did. I was reading as well Tom Feely's preview, and he said something that I kind of saw as well, that it feels like she has decided to become and this this can be said for a number of different people, I suppose, but she's decided to become a striker. She's a good few submissions. Let me look here again. Only 2 submissions, but two. Her last fight was obviously a win by submission, but she did nothing but strike here until she won the submission. But it was nice striking. It was the type of striking, right, that you would, if you were designing someone to fight Angela Hill, you would design someone who is, let me just look here, she's 5'2", maybe not that small. Angela Hill's only 5'3", she fights longer, but someone, and Sue's a fight starter, so someone who fights starter, gets inside, works to the body and lands the bigger power shots, who is relatively fast and a good technical fighter. That's what's going to beat Angela Hill 9 times out of 10, unless it's a really good wrestler. Now, again, if she threw in a bit of wrestling, I think it'd really help. Do I think she's going to? I probably not. So do I think she can beat her on the feet? I think she can. I think what she did, like, even watch the first 90 seconds, 2 minutes of the Waragwai fight. It was enough. I think it was enough to see that she can beat Angela Hill in that game. Like, the problem with Angela Hill as well, right, is this fight more than likely is going to go to a decision. Let's be honest, it's an Angela Hill fight. They go to decisions. And more than likely, she's going to lose that decision because she's throwing jabs and shots that aren't dealt with a big force, whereas Souza is going to be coming in, ripping to the body, ripping with the right hand, throwing combinations and shots that look harder than Angela Hill's, right? Here's the prediction. Angela Hill lands 150 punches, Souza lands 110, and Souza wins. So something like that is going to happen here. And it's really tough to look at someone like Souza and look at the game she has and not fancy her to win rounds against Angela Hill. Now, Hill might try to change things up, might say, look, she got submitted by Karine Silva and Nibar. Maybe I can submit her too. Maybe I'm going to wrestle. Maybe I'm going to do something different. But Souza's wrestling is good. As I said, she might have changed things up, but it's still there if she needs it. So I wouldn't think that's going to be a big issue for her either. So A lot of the fights I've felt really strongly about recently, I haven't gotten my way, but I feel pretty strongly about this. I'm surprised the betting is so close, because I feel like Souza is not a hard. Souza is a bad matchup for Angela Hill, and Angela Hill's not necessarily the hardest of matchups for Souza. Like, I think a big problem with Angela Hill and why people lose to her is maybe they're afraid of like the jab and the length and stuff. But Souza, as I said, she's designed to fight that way, and I like that bet -105. I think she gets it done. So that is bet number 1 of the week. And I'll be honest, the rest of these bets, I did an awful lot of tape watching, an awful lot of thinking, an awful lot of going through different bets for these, because I was pretty sure on that one that I was going to pick it offhand, but these ones not necessarily. So and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it forced me to study, and as I said, maybe that's good. So the second bet, I'm going for Youssef Zalal to win by decision at -125 in his fight against Calvin Kattar. I really like Zalal as a fighter, 16-5-1. With the one being a draw. He's won a boatload of fights in a row. Obviously, back in 2020, 2021, he went on a bit of a losing streak. He lost to Taporia, Choi, Woodson, and then he drew with Damon Blackshaw. But since then, he's looked absolutely unbelievable. And the level of fighters he's beaten over the last while have been really, really good. You know, Quarantillo, Aarons, and Shore. And again, another guy who has really developed his game and has just everybody on tenterhooks, I suppose, in the division to see what he can do. Watching back that fight against Jack Shore, and I have a lot of respect for Jack Shore, covering him up through his whole career, the way he stopped a lot of those takedowns, the way the way it was kind of even through, or relatively even, let's put it that way, through the first 4 or 5 minutes of the fight. And the way he kind of just stepped on it a little bit and took over and won was so impressive. Really, really, really impressive. And it's another step up now again to fight Calvin Kattar. The only thing for Kattar is he has been losing a lot recently, like the last Aljamain Sterling, Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett, Max Holloway, sandwiched in between a win over Giga Chikadze. He's beaten him, Daniga, and Jeremy Stevens, and it's back to as a beat loss in 2019. So I think the big thing about Calvin Kattar, if you look at him now at 36 years of age, 37 in a month's time. Actually, did I just say Angel Hill's birthday was today? I said I think it's the 12th of January, not the 12th of February. So it's actually February. I apologize. Well, happy 13-month birthday, Angel Hill. Anyway, Calvin Kattar has fought once since 2022 or 2025 now. And it was October that year. Fair enough, but he went in there against obviously Aljamain Sterling, and that was the UFC 300 card, and it was a bit of a wet whimper of a fight, if memory serves me correctly. And this is the sort of fight that lads like Calvin Kattar don't win. But it's also the sort of fight that I think Calvin Kattar doesn't get blown out in. So that's the reason I've gone for the Zalal win by decision. Just to look at some of the other bets here, just because I just want to run you through kind of my thinking on this one. Obviously, Zalal, you look at his record, and he's 9 submission wins out of 16 fights. So that's a whole lot. So the first thing I suppose you go to is look at Zalal to win by submission, and that is, that's plus 390. So that's a pretty good bet. But then you go and you look at Calvin Kattar. He's only been submitted once in his whole career, and that was a long time ago, 2008. So he's not gone out there getting submitted, I think this is going to be a fight where Calvin Kattar hangs in there but is losing steadily throughout it. I think it's going to resemble the Jack Shore fight a little bit without maybe the finish. I think he's going to, it's going to be, again, I'll use the phrase, a relatively even fight. And then Zalal's just going to take over and win bit by bit by bit. And I think he's going to win that decision. I could see, as I said, the rest in the submission game is very good, but I could see him maybe getting a little bit of a trip, a bit of a takedown, getting on top. I can see him landing some good shots on Cater, but not giving Cater too much of it. I think Zalal needs to work, not necessarily needs to work in a lot of takedowns. They would help, but I think he needs to work in takedown tries. And I think if he can do that, it's tough to pick against a guy who's 28, against a guy who's 36 and has fought once in the last 2.5 years. I just think it's that curve. If you're looking at a guy on the way up and a guy on the way down, it's hard to pick for Calvin Kattar here. But you never know. You never know. People, a lot of people picked Santini against Poirier. I wasn't one of them necessarily, and I wasn't one of them. But those people are wrong, and maybe I'm wrong here. But I like Youssef Zalal. I like the improvements he's made in his game, and I like him to win by decision here at -125. One of the bets I sweated over again, and I ended up really liking, is the next one, and it's the Edmen Shahbazyan versus Dylan Budka fight. And the bet I'm going for this is under 2.5 rounds at -146, which I just think is a fantastic bet, really. We know what Edmen Shahbazyan is, right? He's 27 years of age now. He's had 18 fights. We know exactly what he is. He's a brilliant boxer with really good power. Good on the ground, good submission game and everything. But if you get him to a certain point of the fight, things will turn. And they will go very quickly downwards. Fluffy Hernandez did it to him. Everyone he lost that did it to him. Mershart especially, a massive, massive underdog, right? But before that happens, he's unbelievable. Like, he's really, really, really brilliant. Like, 13 wins, 11 inside the distance. He's 5 losses, only 1 decision in all of them. And a lot of them obviously under the 2.5 rounds limit, which I've picked here. So that's that. Dylan Budka, the other side of it, watched a couple of his fights. He has more decisions now, to be fair. He's only fought 11 times and 6 of them have gone to a decision. But he went to decision with Petrovsky in his last fight, got finished in just underneath the midway point of the second round in the fight against Cesar Almeida before that. And I'll be honest, look, what is he? He is a good wrestler who throws punches, who dies a death cardio-wise in his fights. So if he can go in. What's going to happen early? I think Shahbazyan is going to style on him. I think he's going to be made to look brilliant by Dylan Budka. And then one of two things will happen. Either he'll knock Budka out without Budka laying a hand on him. And I genuinely think that could be quick. Like, if I had to predict this fight, I think Shahbazyan could knock him out in like 75 seconds or something like that. There we go. But anyway, that doesn't happen. You could see Budka getting a big takedown, getting on top of Shahbazyan, Shahbazyan getting up, takedown again, loads of work against the cage. And at that stage, I think you're maybe 4 minutes in, maybe a round and a half in. I think both of them get really tired. And I think at that point, something gives. Because Budka is one of those guys, he gets so tired that the issues in his striking really shine. And he'll just get demolished by someone as good as Shahbazyan if Shahbazyan keeps going. And Shahbazyan, we know what happens to him. He's, as I said, it turns a very dark corner for Edmen Shahbazyan when it goes wrong. And it goes very wrong. And a guy like Budka will get on top of him. And his nickname, I love his nickname, the Mindless Hulk. You could see a round and a half or 2 rounds into this, the Mindless Hulk coming out and just bashing Shahbazyan into submission or into finish. So I think someone's getting finished in this. I really do. I think it'll be Budka, but like, is Budka good enough to do what the mother lads I just mentioned earlier on, Fluffy and the boys, did? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But at the same time, with Edmen Shahbazyan, there's always a chance, always. But no, I do think he'll win this one. and I think he'd put him away early. But that price was the one that stood out to me. It really did. -146 for the under 2.5 rounds. Honestly, at first, I thought it was a mistake. It was the first time I looked at the price was this morning. It was -163, and it's gone into -146. I love that price. Absolutely love it. So there you go. That is bet number 3 of the week. So we've gone for all 3 kind of even enough money bets there. I'm going to give you... I changed my main event bet around a little bit. I had a bit of a prop but I'm just going to go straight up Gregory Rodrigues -225. And the reason I'm going for it, I usually don't, everyone knows I don't like giving -200 bets. I just think I think it's a really good price, to be honest. Like, I think Rodrigues should be closer to -350, -400. I think this is another changing in the guard type of fight. The Killer Gorilla, Jared Cannonier, is 40 years of age now. He's 41 in a couple of months' time. He's lost his last 2 fights in a row to Bahalio and Imavov. Again, you could argue the two of them are on a different league, but watching back bits and pieces of them and even thinking about him as they were happening, look, he went long on both of those fights. He fought 9 rounds in those last 2 fights. He's not a guy who people have been able to get out of there easily throughout his career. But I just felt like after those 2 fights and watching them both together, my feeling was that it's going to go far downhill now for Cannonier after this. And I'll be honest, one of my bets was maybe Rodrigues to get the knockout here, or maybe even get it early. And I think that could happen, if I'm being honest. The way Rodrigues fights as well, I'm a big fan of Rodrigues, the way he fights. But Cannonier is savvy. But I think against a bigger hitter than Bahalio maybe last time out, it could have been a bad night for him, and I think that's what we're going to see here. But for Rodrigues, even if that doesn't happen, I think he's learnt lessons in his last few fights and gotten a lot better. He lost to Armin Petrosian back in 2022, lost to Bruno Ferreira in 23. But around that, he's beaten good guys, Marquez, Gideon Giacomani, Christian Leroy Duncan, last time out, and Brad Tavares as well. He has beaten the guys I suppose you would want to beat to prepare to step into the rankings and fight someone in the top 15 like Jared Cannonier. So he's ready and he's there and he deserves this shot. And I think his power is going to tell. I think Cannonier doesn't wrestle enough, which he will need to do, I think, against a guy like Rodrigues if he wants success. And I really fancy Rodrigues in this fight. I really, really, really do. We'll take a gander at the odds again and look at the methods of victory in the rounds and stuff like that. So Rodrigues knockout is +163 best price, but I see him at +100 to get the knockout. Now, the bookies are not very often wrong, and that was kind of my thinking as well coming into this. I think this might be the fight where Cannonier gets knocked out. Cannonier to get the knockout +360. I just want to look at Rodrigues to win by decision, because I always think that's an interesting one to look at as well. +500 to win by decision. Obviously going to be 5 rounds. So there's a big difference in those 2 bets. +500 to win by decision, +100 to win by knockout. You never know. That's why I'm going for this bet, because you never know how much is left in the tank of Cannonier. You never know what the step up is going to be like for Rodrigues in a main event like this. Has he fought in a main event before? I'm just looking here. He hasn't, I believe. No, not since he fought Josh Fremd in LFA. So that matters too. And going up to 5 rounds obviously matters too. But yeah, I like Rodrigues here. I like the straight up money. I think it's a relatively good price at -225. Maybe if you're throwing in a parlay or something like that. But yeah, that's the bet here for me. And then we get to the Flier, which again I've gone back and forth on, but I'm happy enough with this one. It's a big price for a heavyweight to get a knockout, and that's Dante Mays at +575 over Walter Walker. I just want to give you the straight up betting price. on that fight. Mays plus 190, best price plus 190. Some places plus 175. Best price on Walker minus 225. So, relatively big favorite there. Walter Walker is, but and he's 12-1 in his career. He's only fought twice in the UFC. Lost to Lucas Brzezinski, didn't beat Junior Tafa in a round. Watching back that Brzezinski fight, it's very hard for me to look at Walter Walker and put him as a surefire favorite in a fight in the UFC against a guy like Dante Mays, who, okay, he isn't amazing. He's 11-7, but he has 6 knockouts in his career, and he's knocked out Andrei Arlovsky. He's knocked out Josh Parisian. He went to the 3rd round with Cyril Gane. This guy's he's not an amazing fighter. Again, I'll harken back to Tom Feely's article here. He was talking about him being a good athlete for a big guy. Both of these guys are, and I'll say this as one myself, large meat wagons. And if it's a difficult thing to say, but if Dante Mays just throws a few punches here against Walter Walker, honestly, Walker makes it very hard to miss him sometimes. What's Walker great at? He's a very good wrestler, and he falls on top of guys and he pulls them to the ground, but he's not exactly your take you down, submit you, finish you easy type of guy. He's 5 decisions in his 13 fights, which is not great for a heavyweight, if we're being honest. 4 decision wins. He's that type of guy. If Mays can get this fight standing and just land a punch in him, Walker gets very tired too, very, very tired. And there's definitely a method, and not too complicated method for Mays to win by knockout, and for it to be plus 575, I think that's a really, really, really good price. If you were to give me straight up bet, honestly, I'm not sure I'd go for. I think this could be a real slop fest. Again, here's another thing I think that could happen. That Walter Walker could go for a takedown, end up on the bottom mounted, and Mays could just finish him with ground and pound from the mount. I could definitely see that happening. This has fall over tired fight written all over it. Maybe a 3rd round finish, slop fest here, or maybe a 1-punch knockout. But yeah, look, Walker's wrestling is very good. There's no doubt about it. He's well able to pull a guy to the ground and slap all over him. But yeah, let's bank on that not happening. Let's go for Mays at plus 575. Other than that, I'll be honest with you. I think I have extracted as many bets from this card as I possibly can. The other ones I was looking at were the Bonfim brothers, and I was thinking about throwing in a little Bonfim double here. Let's see what this is. So Gabriel is minus 215 best price, and his brother is minus 200 best price. So plus 120 for the Bonfim double. I think that's not bad. Although I do like Nazim Sadikov. I don't think he's a bad fighter at all. So I think Ishmael has the tougher fight of the both of them, but I would throw that in there. The other bet I was looking at is Rodolfo Vieira to get the submission, which is a pretty good price, plus 170 best price. I also love when a guy like Vieira, who's obviously a jiu-jitsu guy, is fighting a guy like Petrosky, who is a good fighter, but, has grappled a lot early in his career, as I talked about earlier, and Tom mentioned it as well in the thing. Shout out Tom. Tom's getting a lot of shout outs today. Has started to strike more and might be forced into it, right? I like Vieira via knockout at plus 600. I could see a world where Vieira gets on top, again, ground and pound, mounts him, and maybe ends up finishing him with a few elbows or something like that. Or back mounts him, and, I like that bet there. Vieira at minus 250. Also, I don't think that's the worst bet in the world. So those are kind of the main fights. Anything else from the undercard? Not a whole lot. Jared Gordon, he's a short notice opponent, so always tough to bet on those. And Vince Morales is an underdog, minus plus 163. Possibly. And Julia V is a big underdog as well, but Cavalcante will probably win that one. So That is it. That's the totality of today's bets. Let's recap them. Souza, minus 105, minus 125 for Zalal to win a decision, minus 146 for Budka and Shahbazyan to be under 2.5 rounds. And then Rodrigues, straight up moneyline bet, minus 225. And the flyer of the week is Dontel Mays to get the knockout at plus 575. All right, everybody, that is it from me. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please bet responsibly. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.